Imagine a warm Earth with no ice, giant conifer forests, and new oceans being born. Dinosaurs shook the ground, pterosaurs rode the wind, and reefs grew in clear blue seas. This was the Jurassic, louder, greener, and stranger than today. So what did Earth really look and feel like back then, and how do we know? You step into the Jurassic, a warm span between 200 million and 145 million years ago, and the air hugs your skin like a towel from the sun. There is no ice at the poles, no white caps to lock water away, so the seas are high, and they reach into low valleys, turning them into long shining bays. New shorelines bend around the edges of the land like fresh scars, and waves lick rock ledges and leave bright salt lines. The mornings begin with a deep, steady blue, and by noon tall clouds build like towers and drift across the sky, letting down warm rain that drums on stone and leaf. You can smell salt and resin at the same time, the ocean and the sticky sap of tall conifer trees mixing in the moving air. From a low ridge you can see how the world is changing. The great supercontinent Pangaea, once a giant puzzle piece, is cracking along long lines that run for hundreds of miles. Those cracks are rift valleys, steep on both sides and deep in the middle, and they lengthen only a few centimeters each year, about as fast as your fingernails grow, yet the motion never stops. Heat lifts from inside the planet, melts rock and pours it upward, and lava cools into dark steps of basalt that stack along the valley floor. In some places, the rifts hold chains of lakes. In time, those lakes join and widen into a skinny new ocean, the early Atlantic, still young and pushing its way between lands that were once pressed tight. Vents hiss along the low ground, and the air carries a faint egg smell from gases that seep up, a soft reminder that inside the planet heat never sleeps. You drop from the ridge into a forest where the path is soft with needles and fern fronds. The forest is thick, but it is not like a modern one. There are no flowers yet, and no grass to make an easy green lawn. Tall conifers lift dark spires into the light. Ginkgos spread flat fans of leaves that flash bright green when the wind turns them. Tree ferns raise green umbrellas above your head. Cycads stand like short palm trees with tough crowns. The shade is cool and damp, and the air tastes of sap and bark, with a clay note after rain. When wind moves through the conifer limbs, it plays a low, rough song, and the tree ferns answer with a dry whisper. Beetles click along fallen cones. A dragonfly zips past your ear like a dart and lands on a fern stem, its thin wings catching light that leaks through the canopy in gold sheets. Tiny furry shapes rustle in the leaf litter and freeze when your shadow passes. They are early mammals, quick and careful, living quiet lives at the edge of bigger stories. Beyond the trees, a wide plain reaches to low, smoky hills. The smoke is not a forest fire. It is the slow breath of the rift, steam and ash that puff and fade, a steady sign that the crust is thin and the planet's heat is close. A small tremor runs through your boots, just a ripple, like a giant cat stretching under the floor, and then the ripple is gone, and the insects begin their hum again. The sun rides a long arc, shadows crawl like lazy rivers, and dusk brings out the smell of wet fern and warm stone. The ground holds the day's heat like a thick quilt holds a body, and the night air stays soft against your face. On the coast, shallow water over wide shelves turns a clear green, warm enough for reefs to grow strong. You can see the reef line as a pale band where waves break into bright foam. Far offshore, a high ridge runs like a seam down the ocean floor. It makes new crust and pushes old crust away, and that steady work helps keep seas high. Inland, slow rivers wander across broad floodplains, spreading thin sheets of silt that dry and crack in the sun, then soften and flow again when the next storm bursts. Morning fog sinks into hollows and then melts when the sun climbs a hand's width above the hills. Afternoon brings warm rain that taps leaf and cone and stone. Streams rise fast, run brown, and then settle clear, leaving lines that show where the water has been. The soil is busy. Worms work. Tiny fungi thread through fallen wood. Every smell has a partner here. Pine with damp, salt with clay, ash with rain. Every sound travels with a twin. Wind with leaves, water with stone, wing with call. Even far from the coast you taste the sea, because in a warm world ocean breath reaches deep into the land. The land feels steady, but change works everywhere. The slow split of rock will redraw the edges of seas and the paths of wind and rain. Cliffs will lift where flats used to lie. New islands will step from the water, and old land will drown, and the patterns of life will follow those new lines. Over long, quiet ages, one kind will become two, and two will become many. You press your palm to warm stone and feel the small shiver of the Earth's deep engine, a pulse so faint you might think you imagined it. You close your eyes and listen. A far call rides the wind from the open plain, deep and rough, and your skin prickles. You picture a long neck moving above the tree line like a crane arm, or plates on a heavy back catching sun like roof tiles, or a hunter's shadow sliding over ferns without a sound. Wings beat somewhere above the canopy, slower and wider than any bird you know, and a wash of air brushes your face and is gone. These hints set a soft tension in your chest, not fear but a pull to walk farther, to crest the next low ridge, to see what makes the thumps and sighs you keep catching and losing in a single breath. When night comes, frogs claim the creeks, and insects trade bright day clicks for steady chirps. You lie back on warm rock and feel the ground hold you. Somewhere far off a rift breathes again, and a thin red glow stains a slice of cloud, then fades. The earth's heartbeat settles. The air keeps its damp heat. With your cheek on stone that was lava only months ago, you think of the clock that hangs over this age. Its start at 200 million years and its end at 145 million years, and you know you have stepped into a long chapter with a strong voice. You follow a long crack through the land as Pangaea pulls apart, and the ground feels warm and a little loose under your boots. The crack is a deep rift valley with steep walls and a flat floor, and it runs so far the end hides in haze. Each year the two sides slide away by a few centimeters, about as fast as your fingernails grow, and the motion never stops. Heat from deep rock rises like slow breath. Lava spills and cools into dark basalt steps, and new ground builds in quiet sheets. Vents hiss and paint the air with a faint egg smell. Pebbles on fresh lava clink like glass when your heel taps them. Warm winds from wide, shallow seas carry thick clouds inland. Rain falls often, and the valley holds water like a long cup. Lakes form in chains that curve along the floor. Reeds on their edges rattle when the afternoon breeze picks up. In one lake, the water tastes fresh and sweet. In the next, it tastes briny, sharp as a tear. When a hot month dries a shallow pool to a skin, pink salt crunches under your sandal. It stings a scraped knuckle. Dragonflies skim the mirror surface. Tiny ripples spread and fold like silver threads. You climb the west wall and look back, and the valley becomes a map. Old rocks on the rim stand gray and folded like cloth frozen in wind. Young rocks in the middle lie flat and dark where lava spread only months ago. They are smooth as baked bread. A thin brown river threads the floor, then widens into lake after lake. It looks like beads laid in a groove. The wind carries smells in layers. Wet clay comes first, then pine resin, then a soft smoke note from far vents that pop and sigh. The soil under your hand is warm even in shade. North and south of you, the land sorts into two great bodies. They begin to drift like slow rafts. The northern mass will one day hold places we call North America, Europe, and Asia. The southern mass will one day hold South America, Africa, India, Antarctica, and Australia. Today the names do not matter. The motion matters. The north leans one way, the south leans another. New ocean water pushes between them like a thin silver knife. The gap is small now, but it is real, and it grows. Weeks pass, and storms from the young sea grow stronger. The sea is skinny now, but each year it widens by the width of a thumb. Waves push farther inland than they did last season. They find a low place and rush in with a roar. A salt flat becomes a shallow bay in an afternoon. Tides begin to matter. You read the moon to guess how high the water will climb in the night. On mornings after a high tide, the new bay holds bright schooling fish. They rode in on the flood and now circle in flashing loops. New shorelines draw themselves day by day. Curves replace straight coasts. Beaches that were rounded stones last year are fine sand now. Long, steady waves grind them down grain by grain. The waves travel hundreds of kilometers before they fold and fall. Along quiet bends, tiny reefs begin in bath-warm water. Little fish slip in and out of the reef's lacework and wink like bits of sky. Far offshore, a low ridge rises on the ocean floor and makes new crust. It is a slow, tireless seam. Back inland, the rift system branches like a tree root. New valleys split to the east and west. Each small branch starts the same story again. Heat, steam, lakes, fresh dark rock. Some valleys fail and close. Their lakes fill with silt and turn into level meadows that smell sweet after rain. Some valleys deepen, widen, and let in the sea. Herd paths change with the new water. A route that was dry and quick last year now ends at a bright bay. Slow waves push reeds flat twice a day. You spend an evening on a cliff that looks east across a young strait. It is only 2 kilometers wide. The wind tastes like salt and sun. The far shore seems close enough to throw a stone. You know it moves away a few centimeters each year. You look at your thumbnail and know that is the measure. It is a small number, but your heart taps faster when you stack time like leaves. In 1,000 years, a swimmer could not cross in a day. In 1,000,000 years, no eye could see the far side from this place. The split changes the sky as well as the ground. When land pulls apart, mountains and new seas bend wind paths. Wet air rides in where it could not reach before. Storms build where air climbs, cools, and drops its load. One wall of a valley can be green with ferns and conifers fed by daily showers, while the opposite wall stays brown and hard under a bright blue dome. You can walk from shade to glare in an hour. You can feel the line where damp turns to dry. It is like stepping from a bath into a room with a fire. Night after night, the rift lights mark a dotted path across the dark. You can read the future in that glow, the way sailors read stars. The future says the split will win. The slim sea will grow into a true ocean. It will be wider than any river of wind can cross in a day. New coasts will shape new lives. Change will not be gentle. Quakes will shake. Cliffs will fall. Waves will pull whole trees back into green water with a single tug. But change will also build. New bays will cradle reefs. New shelves will hold warm, clear water. You sleep on warm stone while a small tremor walks under you like a slow drumbeat. You wake to a dawn so clear, the far ridges seem close enough to touch. The air smells of resin and damp dust. In the distance, a red smear glows where a crack opened in the night. It spilled a little river of fire. By noon, the flow is black and still. Heat lifts from it in faint waves that wobble the air. A beetle crosses the new rock, stops, and then hurries on. It is the first small traveler on a fresh road. By late season, the new sea has its own voice. It booms in caves cut yesterday. It hums on bars laid last week. It hisses over flats that were grass in spring. It is patient and exact. It tests every line and finds weak spots. It works them loose grain by grain. The land yields with sighs and thuds. The coast moves back a hand's width here, a finger there, a whole stride where storm waves bite hard. Behind you, old riverbeds dry and crack. Ahead of you, a pale band of sand widens like a smile. You stand where river water meets salt and dip your hand. The mix is cool and a little slick. A thin silver fish bumps your wrist and is gone. A breeze lays ripples across the surface so that light turns to broken coins. Across the strait, the far cliff drops pebbles, then a slab, then a whole face. The splash sends up a white sheet that hangs for a breath, then falls. The noise rolls over the water like a drum. You hold still and feel the ground answer with a soft, steady thrum. It is the quiet voice of the split. At sunset, the sky goes copper over the young ocean. A line of dark shapes moves low and slow toward the new coast. They ride the wind with wide, careful wings and settle on the fresh strand where foam pulls back. You do not know their names yet, only their size and call, and that is enough. The day cools. The earth hums. The sea breathes in and out. In the dark, you still hear the hiss from vents on the valley floor. You hear the far boom of waves. The world breaks and makes at the same time, and you feel both in your chest. You listen as land and sea write tomorrow's map, slowly together. You wake to a sky the color of warm water, and the air holds your skin like a damp blanket. This is the Jurassic, and the day begins soft and sticky. There is no ice at the poles, so the seas stand high and lick far into the land. The sun climbs, and the light feels thick, as if it carries heat you can almost see. A breeze from the water smells of salt. A thin fog sits in hollows and melts as the sun lifts a hand's width. Dew beads on conifer needles and drops in tiny ticks. You walk through ginkgos whose flat leaves flash when the wind turns them. Ferns brush your knees and paint dark watermarks. Far out, the sea lies glossy like poured oil. Heat rises from it and feeds the sky. Warm water gives the day its shape. By late morning, the first cloud towers grow, bright on top and dark below, wide as towns and tall as hills. Their edges boil and curl. The smell shifts from sap to damp stone. The first fat drop splats on your wrist. Then the rain comes in sheets. Puddles join into silver ribbons. Tiny streams foam and rush toward gullies. Then the curtain lifts. Blue leaks through the ragged edge. Light returns in plates on wet leaves. Steam lifts from the ground and bends as the breeze shifts. Beetles click back to work. A dragonfly skims a pool that did not exist an hour ago. It is warm enough that your fingers do not flinch. The ground drinks part of the rain and sends the rest as tan sheets toward the sea, leaving pale lines on stones. By afternoon, a land breeze slides out toward the water. It smells like resin and damp bark. The reef line hums where waves break in a steady beat. Days like this repeat for long months. Summer runs long and winter is short and gentle. Nights are mild. You sleep on stones still warm from noon. Dawn comes with a skin of mist that pools in low places and then thins when the sun climbs. Some coasts see a storm almost every afternoon. Other places have a single wet season and then weeks of blue sky. Even when the air dries for a while, the heat stays kind. Frost is rare except on high peaks, and snow is a story you tell and do not see. Far inland where the sea breeze cannot reach, the morning light is harsh and bright. Wind lifts dust in skinny columns that sway and dance. Lakes fill in the wet months and then fall back, leaving white rings in cracked mud. The smell is dry like warm bread crust. You watch a storm cross the horizon like a slow ship. The first drops are big and far apart like coins thrown on stone. Then the sky opens, the coins turn to a sheet, and the dust vanishes. Near the poles the rules hold. There are no ice sheets, no endless nights of deep freeze. Summers are long and bright. Ferns and small conifers grow by the shore, and wet ground squishes under your heel. Winters bring dim light and chill rain. Pools skin over now and then, but heavy snow is rare and soon gone. The sea near the poles is cool but open, and fog drifts over it like breath. You learn the daily rhythm like a song. Morning starts soft. Air rises from the sea and drifts inland. By midday, bright anvils gleam on top and brood below. Wind sweeps in ahead of the rain and combs a line in the grass. The gust front smells like damp metal and fresh-cut wood. Then the wall of water is on you, loud and cold for a minute, warm again as it runs down your neck. You hold out a flat hand and catch enough to drink. Lightning rattles your ribs, then the storm moves on and leaves a world washed and bright. The taste is salt and sap. The sound is drip, buzz, rumble, hush. The feel is warm skin and wet hair and the weight of a shirt that never quite dries before dark. The sight is thick greens, pale reefs, wide blue and cloud towers that mark the hours like a clock. All of this rests on simple facts. The air holds more of the gas that keeps heat near the ground. The seas are wide and warm. Land breaks into pieces, so more shoreline meets more water. Warm seas send up vapor. Vapor feeds clouds. Clouds make rain. Rain feeds rivers and plants. Plants breathe, and the cycle runs on. The numbers change by place and time, but the feel does not. Gentle winters, long summers, wet coasts, and wide warm shelves that shine like coins in sun. At dusk you stand on a headland and watch the last storm fade. The tall cloud that shook the hills turns pink, then gray, then deep purple. The air is calm. Waves slap rock with an even beat like a steady heart. Far above, something with long, slow wings glides across the last light and tips to a rising glide. You breathe sweet resin with a tiny spark of ash from some far vent. Night smells like wet stone and cool earth. Stars prick through the last blue, and heat still lifts from the path in tiny shivers. Somewhere in the dark, a long neck moves above the trees, and a heavy step thumps once, then again fading. You lie back on a smooth slab and feel it hold the day's warmth. You think of how a world can be calm and wild at once, soft on the skin yet strong enough to shape coast and life. The rule of this age is simple and sure, and you can say it as sleep pulls at your eyes. The world is warm, the world is wet, and the world keeps... You step into a green world that grows without flowers. The forest smells of resin and wet bark. Light slides down in long bands and turns the air gold. The ground is springy with needles and fern fronds, and every step makes a soft hush. Beetles lift their shells like tiny doors and crawl under cones. Wind moves through tall trees and the sound is a low sea. You can taste sap on your tongue and feel damp in your breath. This place is calm, but it is busy. Leaves make shade, roots drink deep, and trunks rise straight like pillars in a hall. You put your hand on rough bark and feel a faint thrum, as if the tree keeps time with the sun and the rain. The big trees are conifers, straight and strong. Their trunks are thick as a truck tire, and some rise higher than a 10-story house. Their limbs hold thousands of hard needles, each like a thin green pin. The needles catch light and drip it down in sparks. Beside them, ginkgos lift flat fan leaves that flash green when the wind turns them. Cones hang like brown lanterns. When the sun dries them, they open with tiny clicks and let go of seeds with papery wings. Wind lifts the seeds and they spin like little helicopters and land far from the parent tree. Sticky resin beads along old scars and shines like honey. A fly lands, sticks and stops, and the drop hardens around it. One day that clear bead may turn to amber and keep a small story safe for millions of years. Tree ferns fill the spaces between trunks. Their stalks are brown and furry and as thick as your leg. Each holds a green crown that spreads like a giant hand. The fronds start curled tight like fiddleheads. As they open, they draw wide circles in the air. When you brush them, they shower you with tiny spores. The spores taste dry, like chalk and leaf. Horsetails line the stream in stiff green rows and tick your shins as you pass. They feel rough, almost sandy, because tiny grains coat each stem. Sunlight flashes on wet ribs and makes thin mirrors along the water. Cycads stand like short palm trees in open patches. Their trunks are scaly and hold a ring of hard leaves. The leaves are shiny and have sharp edges that can slice a thumb. In the center sits a heavy cone, sometimes as big as your head. Warm air carries the cone's odd smell, a mix of yeast and spice. Tiny beetles crawl in and out and move pollen for the plant. A small furry animal noses near the cone, steals a seed and runs. Many seeds are tough or bitter, so only a few mouths can eat them. What is hard for one life can be perfect for another. That balance fills the grove with quiet motion. There is no grass under your feet. The ground is a quilt of ferns, club moss, and baby conifers. Open places wear a crust of tiny plants that hold the soil when rain hammers down. Deer paths do not snake through this place, because deer have not yet been born. Instead, wide prints the size of dinner plates cross the damp earth and crush fern stems. The prints point toward tall shade where leaves hang within reach of long necks. A branch creaks, a trunk shivers, and your skin prickles as something huge passes just out of sight, stripping a low bough with a slow brooming sound and leaving a clean bite mark in the green. Not far away, fresh ash dusts leaves like flour. A small cinder cone smokes beyond the ridge. Last week it coughed grit over the forest and lit crowns with brief flames. The fire ran low and slow, ate dead needles, and then went to sleep in damp ground. Now the smell is clean and sweet. Black lines mark the path the fire took, and bright shoots rise at their edges. Cones on the burned floor have opened wide. Seeds lie ready on the ash, and the first rain will tuck them into soft soil. In this age, even trouble can be a kind of help that opens space for new green. A thin stream threads the roots and leaves a bright line of silt that sparkles when the sun peeks through again. The air is busy but quiet. Bees have not come to this world yet. No petal makes a bright flag. No fruit hangs heavy and sweet. Still, the forest feeds and moves. Wind is the main helper. It carries pollen from tree to tree and from hill to hill. Water is the other helper. It lifts seeds, rolls them, and sets them down in a new place. Animals add their own lines to the map. A heavy belly full of hard seeds travels far and leaves a small pile where sun and rain can reach the ground. In this way, the green spreads without a single bloom. At dusk, the grove turns to a room of columns. High crowns make a dark ceiling. Light hangs low. A small wind stirs and the trees speak in low voices. Somewhere a cone drops and knocks 3 times on a limb, then thuds into soft duff. Far off, a long shape moves where the leaves thin. It raises a neck like a living crane and reaches into the topmost spray. The branch snaps and vanishes between slow jaws. A shower of needles falls like rain and the smell of resin grows sweet and sharp. You think of flowers that are not yet here, of bees that will one day write bright paths in the air, of grass that will later sow flat lawns across open ground. For now this world is older in its ways. It throws dust to the wind, sends spores like mist, and trusts rain to carry the rest. You step onto a broad plain, and the ground answers in a slow beat. It is not thunder, it is feet. A herd of long-necked giants moves like gray hills on the march. Necks sweep above conifer tops like cranes at work. Bodies run bus-long, some twice that. Each step presses a round print, the size of a trash can lid, into damp earth. Warm wind brings resin, mud, and animal heat. Bark flakes drift with each pull of a leaf, and sap strings shine in sun. Dragonflies skim puddles. Lizards dash, freeze, and vanish under fern shadows fast. A young giant tests a shallow stream. Water curls around its ankles and shows the ripple of each careful step. Fish flash from its shadow like coins. The little one snorts, swings its tail for balance, and feels for firm ground by weight alone. On the far bank, a broad path shows old travel. Prints over prints in a braid, dried hard enough to hold days. The trail narrows between rocky knobs. You see why the herd picks it. Shelter, water, sightlines, and room to turn. Ginkgo leaves spin down like fans, and beetles tick across sun-warmed mud and pebbles. Not far off, platebacks graze. Their bodies are low and heavy, ovens that learn to walk. 2 rows of tall plates run from neck to tail, some as high as a child's chest. Steam lifts from dark backs when a fine rain begins. A tail with 4 long spikes swings slow and easy while they feed. When a horsefly lands, the tail twitches and the air whistles. Each step presses a neat 4-toed print. They browse like cattle, and leave stems clipped clean. Sap scent grows sweet. Gnats drift like dust. A frog peeps from reed shade near their feet. You rest in the shade of a fallen trunk and watch the plain. A line of meat-eaters appears on a low ridge like shadows that learn to walk. They are tall but not the tallest here, with big skulls and long 3-finger hands that flex as they move. Some are car-long, one is horse-high. The largest wears a skull near a meter long. They do not charge. They flow along the herd's edge, reading weak steps and soft ground. Their jaws hold uneven blades for shearing. Dust trails follow their hips. Quiet coughs stitch the moving line together. The little giant from the stream is near the back now. Two older animals slide to its sides until their flanks brush. Their tails form a moving fence. The hunters jog in and break and peel away, again and again, a tide that never quite climbs the beach. A plateback turns broadside and lifts its tail. Its spikes glint with rain. One hunter faints, then hooks away. The herd keeps walking, not fast, just steady, heads up, bodies between teeth and the small. Minutes stretch like rope. Breath steams. Heartbeats thud in ground and ribs, slow and stubborn against fear. Toward midday, the giants reach a stand of conifers that bend over a shallow lake. Neck after neck dips and rises like pumps drawing from a green well. You hear teeth click on twigs, water drip from muzzles, the soft thunder of breath. The shore is busy with smaller lives. Two-leggers with narrow heads and stiff tails chase bugs and snap up frogs. Their feet leave three-toed arrows. A shrew-sized mammal darts from fern to log, washes its face and vanishes. Beetles tunnel cones. Dragonflies sow the air. A turtle plops from a root and floats, blinking slowly nearby. In a quiet bend, round eggs lie half buried in warm sand, each the size of a grapefruit. A line of shallow scrapes shows where a tail swept clean before the eggs were set. The nest is not guarded now, but it is not empty. The sun is the sitter here. Heat does the slow work. A shell near the edge is broken, thin as a fingernail and stained by damp. Beetles already picked tiny bones. Yet many eggs are sound and still. If you kneel and hold still, you can feel faint taps through sand like heartbeats at dawn. Clouds build again, as they do on many days in this warm age. Thunder rolls once, twice, then rests. The herd stirs. A few giants swing their heads to watch. A gust flips ginkgo fans so the grove flashes pale. Rain starts with big drops, then many. The smell grows sweet and sharp. Crushed needles, wet bark, fresh mud, a hint of ash from a far rift. Sound blurs to a steady hiss. The lake lifts a finger's width in minutes. When the rain eases, frogs sing like bells. Steam rises in veils. Birds call from reed beds at once. Evening brings long purple shadows and a cooler skin to the day. The pack returns, not as a line now, but as dots spaced wide, each choosing a lane through knee-high fern. They do not run, they slide. Their eyes shine for a blink at each window of light. They angle for the tails, where a tired step might fall short. One giant stumbles in a shallow hole. A hunter leans in. A plateback swings and the spikes cut air. The whistle is bright and mean. The hunter jolts sideways, scrapes mud and pulls back with a hiss, frustrated. Night lands soft and quick. The herd circles on a rise with open sight lines. Big bodies face outward. Small ones sleep in the lee. Tails lie ready. The hunters keep their distance and talk in barks and coughs that jump across the dark. Stars prick the clear band above the storm's edge. Heat climbs from wet earth in thin shivers. Before dawn, a mist pools low. From the sand, a peep, a snout. Cracks spread like tiny lightning. A hatchling blinks, sneezes, and stands on needle legs. The plain takes a slow breath. The beat begins again at sunrise. You lift your eyes and the sky is busy. Wind slides from the warm sea and rises in soft sheets, and anything with wings rides that gift. Pterosaurs appear first, flying reptiles light as kites and strong as sailcloth. Their wings are skin stretched from long arms to bodies, and down to small ankles, held out by a single finger longer than all the rest. The membranes shine like wet leaves when the sun hits just right. Some are small, with wings the width of a child's bed, about 1 meter across. Others reach 2 or 3 meters from tip to tip. They bank and tilt and change height with tiny moves of wrist and tail. A few have long tails with a diamond at the end, like a flag. Others have short tails and long narrow wings made for speed. Soft fuzz covers their necks and backs like a thin coat. Their heads are light, with long jaws lined by sharp teeth for grabbing fish and bugs. You stand on a limestone ledge above a pale lagoon and feel the updraft push your shirt against your ribs. Below, the water is clear as glass and still as a held breath until a breeze ruffles it into scales. Out over the flats, a pterosaur with a long tail and a diamond vein, Rhamphorhynchus, beats 3 times, then glides. Its tail flag quivers like a tiny rudder. It tips one long wing, draws a curve across the wind, and drops narrow jaws in a quick, clean dip. Silver sprays. A fish wriggles, then vanishes down the throat. A soft hiss follows, thin under the surf. Farther down the shore, a short-tailed kind, Pterodactylus, stands in a group on a sandbar, toes pressed into wet ripples, wing fingers folded like slim canes. Their necks make S-curves as they watch the water. One lifts, runs 2 neat steps, and lets the breeze take its weight. Another hops, flares, and misses a gust. then tries again. They call in thin piping notes that carry over the waves. When a cloud cools the surface, the group rises at once and circles the warmer edge where fish come up to feed. A dark shape passes under the lagoon, a shadow smooth as oil. For a moment the flyers wheel higher, careful of what swims below. The shape turns and vanishes into green, and the pterosaurs sink again to hunt. The air is not theirs alone. Broad dragonflies patrol between conifer tops. A moth with bark stripes settles on a trunk and vanishes into the cracks. Beetles lift, hang, and then zip away like thrown pebbles. But the new thing in the trees is feather and bone. In late light, a shape the size of a crow bursts from a ginkgo and glides to a low conifer branch, claws scraping bark. It folds layered wings and cocks its head. The feathers are not fluff. They are blades, stiff on the front edge and soft on the back, made to bite the air. In the open mouth, small teeth show. On each wing, a tiny claw grips the bark. This is an early bird. Like Archaeopteryx, it does not own the sky yet. It shares it. You watch it move along the branch in short steps. It tests a gap, then leaps, a flap, a glide, then a second branch. A click of claws, a quick turn, a stab, and a small lizard becomes dinner. The bird's throat works. A flake of skin sticks on its lip. It wipes the spot on rough bark and shuffles deeper into shade. Above you, pterosaurs loaf on a high ledge, wings half open to dry. One nips another and earns a hiss that sounds like air from a reed. Their eyes are large and glossy like wet stones. They blink sideways with a thin, clear lid. Late morning brings stronger lift as the land warms. Over the cliff the air flows up in a steady river, and the flyers stack in that moving column like leaves in a fountain. Rhamphorhynchus rides at mid-height, tail vane steady. Pterodactylus circles higher, thin as a pressed leaf against the blue. The little bird chooses rough air near the trees. It flaps in short bursts and rests between, using wind that curls off trunks and ridges. Each kind finds the slice of sky that fits its shape and plan. Each move spends or saves energy like coins in a jar. You walk a narrow beach where the lagoon meets open sea. The smell is salt, sun, and a sweet note of rotting weed. A line of three-toed prints crosses damp sand, then stops where a gust has wiped them clean. Beside your heel, a pterosaur track shows a small handmark and a long toe, as if a child made a puppet in mud. Far off, a dark shape tilts and falls. A pterosaur misjudged a gust and hits water hard. For a breath it lies like a broken kite. Then it rose with both wings, slapping the surface, and claws forward with little feet. A small wave lifts it. Wind catches the membrane. The animal lunges up, shakes off drops, and climbs with quick beats until it finds smooth air again. The lesson is simple and strict. Miss a gust and you work. Miss a landing and you pay. At noon, heat pools like water on the rocks. Pterosaurs gape to cool their heads. Their throats flutter fast. The little bird pants with its beak open and wings drooped. In shade by the cliff, a line of small bodies stands like cloaks on pegs. Pterosaurs resting with feet flat and hands braced, wings wrapped around like shawls. One blinks slow, and a tiny tear of clear fluid shines at the edge of the eye before it slides away. Another scratches a fuzzed neck with a hind claw and goes still again. Sleep comes in thin slices while the wind is wrong. In mid-afternoon, a squall builds like a wall. The smell of rain runs ahead of it, clean and metallic. The bird tucks into the lee of a trunk. The pterosaurs rise higher, where the air is smoother, or drop to ledges to wait it out. Big warm drops slap dust into dark spots that grow and join. Then the sheet arrives, and the world is one color and one sound. Leather wings shine black, feathers shed water in beaded rows. After the rush, the edges tear. Sunlight cuts through in white blades, and the air jumps with insects. A pterosaur opens wide and skims with mouth agape, sieving a cloud of midges like rain in a net. The bird darts out to snatch a beetle and lands again with a shake. By late day, you climb to the cliff top and sit where the stone is still hot from noon. The sea is a flat coin out to the haze line. A pterosaur tilts past so close you hear the skin whisper. Its eye meets yours for a blink. It banks and shows pale lines of blood vessels under the wing membrane like a leaf held to the sun. Another glides below, shadow skimming foam. Over the inland trees, the little bird loops from branch to branch, then rides a lucky gust and skims above the canopy for a breath long enough to feel like a win. It drops back to a trunk and clacks its beak. As dusk spreads, the wind eases and turns cool. Pterosaurs fold into roosts on the cliff and stack like coats on a wall. Some hang by their forelimbs for a moment, then settle on hind feet and curl their wings around like blankets. They face the last light, eyes half closed. The little bird tucks its head under a wing and trembles once, then grows still. Waves tick the rocks below in a slow count. Far out, small fins break and breathe, and their puffs drift like tiny clouds. Bats will not come to this sky for many millions of years. For now, the night belongs to still air and stars. You lie back and let the first points show. A thin moon hangs over the reef. Tomorrow will bring another climb of sun, another set of updraft stairs, another chain of chances and risks. The sky seems gentle, but it is exact. Every turn costs, every glide saves. The flyers write their stories on moving wind, and the wind keeps none of it. One day, far beyond this age, featherfolk will rule these paths, and pterosaurs will be only bones pressed in stone. For now, in this warm night, both hold the air together, and the line between them is as thin as a feather's edge, and as strong as a stretched wing in a steady breeze. The night grows quiet, and the stars come out. You stand at the edge of a Jurassic sea, and the water is warm like bath water. The air smells of salt and sun. Waves comb a wide, pale shelf where corals build slow walls, and the reef hums with life. Tiny fish flash like chips of sky. A turtle as long as a bicycle glides between fingers of stone and nibbles a sponge. When a cloud covers the sun, the color shifts from emerald to steel. Beyond the reef, the bottom drops fast. Blue turns deep and then almost purple. Here the big hunters move. An ichthyosaur the length of a van, about 6 meters, rises under a school of fish. The skin is dark on top and pale below, a shadow on a shadow. A flick, a loop, a snap, and a fish is gone. It tilts to the surface, puffs once, and slides down again with barely a ring. Farther out, a long neck breaks the surface like a question mark, then sinks without a sound. A plesiosaur cruises just under the skin of the sea. Its neck is 3 meters long, its body 2, and 4 flippers row in calm strokes that look slow but carry it like a strong boat. Belemnites, squid with bullet-hard guards, jet away in brown clouds. The plesiosaur picks one, cuts the zag after the zig, opens small sharp teeth and swallows. Down in cooler water the light softens to green. A plesiosaur works the slope, a broad-headed cousin with short neck and huge jaws. This one is 7 meters long and thick as a car. Its teeth are as long as your hand. It is the heavy shadow other shadows watch. It does not chase far. It waits where the current bends. A young ichthyosaur strays from its school, and the plesiosaur kicks twice. The gap closes. The sea keeps only a swirl. Not all the life here is giant. Ammonites drift and spin in slow spirals. Their shells are tight coils, some the size of your palm, some as wide as a cartwheel. Fine lines ripple across each whorl like waves on sand. Thin tentacles test the flow. When danger brushes close, a jet of water pops them backward like rubber balls. Empty shells roll on the bottom and ring softly when small stones tap them. You dive along the face where the shelf ends. The rock is black in places, not from soot but from mud set in water with too little breath to keep big animals alive. Worms write tiny loops in the soft layer. Bacteria make faint threads that look like smoke. When storms shake the surface, flakes of broken reef drift down like snow and settle in the dark. These beds will harden into pages that future eyes can read, a book of warm seas and quiet, low-oxygen nights. A shape like a crocodile rises from deeper blue, but this one is made for sea, with a tail like a fish and smooth, shining skin. It is a Meteororhynchid, a marine croc about 3 meters long. Small front legs, big back flippers, and a faint mask of darker skin around the eye make its look strange and sharp. It noses into a school of belemnites and snaps twice, then twists and swallows. It climbs in a slow spiral, breaks the surface to huff a breath, and sinks again. By afternoon the wind freshens. Lines march in from open water, straight and even as soldiers. The reef throws them into white lace. Beyond the reef the swell lifts and lowers you in a long, slow rhythm, 1 meter, then another. An ichthyosaur uses the lift like a ramp, angles high and bursts into bright air, drops string from its tail in pearls. It lands with a clap, vanishes, then rises again to breathe. Storms here start quick. The sky goes slate and the air smells like iron. Rain hits so hard it bounces, and the surface blurs into one skin. Underneath order holds. The plesiosaur rows on. The plesiosaur lets the current bring dinner. Ammonites pull soft parts deeper inside their shells. On the reef fish pack into caves and holes. A wave tears loose a block of coral as big as a room and drops it with a thud you feel in your chest. The roar runs on, then thins, and light returns in broken coins across the flats. Evening lays gold on the quiet sea behind the storm. Shadows grow long and soft. The surface seems empty, but the water is not done. Tiny lights bloom a meter down, then 2, then 10. Plankton makes sparks when something brushes them. A shoal of small fish writes bright cursive in the dark, each turn a flash, each dash a streak. A pterosaur skims low and its wingtips wake 2 glowing ropes that run out behind and fade. The first stars prick on above. Night brings quiet hunters close. A plesiosaur rises like a ghost and takes a fish right under the skin of the sea. The only sound is a soft gulp. The reef clicks and ticks and pops as tiny lives eat and build. You float and feel the water move under you like a slow animal. Heat leaks away. a little each hour, and the air turns thin and kind on your face. Near midnight the tide falls a hand's width. Pools trap bright stars on the reef flat. Crabs drag belemnite guards to safe cracks and dine. A small ammonite, no wider than your palm, lies stranded in a rocky bowl. Its tentacles pat the wall, searching for a way back. A short wave, just the right size, climbs up, spills over, and lifts the little coil. It spins twice, finds the channel, and goes. The bowl grows quiet. Toward dawn the wind veers and cools. A low fog pulls itself across the water like a sheet. The sea looks still again. Then silverbacks break the surface in the far band of gray. Not dolphins, not yet. These are fish with high tails that cut, turn and cut again. An ichthyosaur tracks them below and matches each bend. The light grows. The fog thins. The plesiosaur takes its place on the slope. The plesiosaur rows its slow path. The reef wakes and hums. The sea writes another long page, and only stone will keep it. You wait for dusk, when the big feet grow quiet and the soft lives wake. The forest cools your cheeks and smells like wet bark, crushed fern, and a hint of sap. Above, conifer crowns hold the last gold, but the floor turns blue, a world of logs and roots and narrow paths no wider than your hand. A tiny rustle stirs the leaf litter near your boot. Whiskers test the air. A small head peeks out. Then a little body follows, light as a leaf and quick as a thought. It is a mammal the length of your palm, with neat fur and eyes like black beads. Its nose twitches fast, reading the air the way you read a page. It weighs less than a small apple. 5-toed feet set down soft. It noses under a fallen cone, pulls a beetle grub free, and crunches. The sound is like biting a crisp seed. A spider thread touches its whiskers. It shakes and slips under the line, carries the grub to a root, eats and wipes its face on moss. A click from the path makes it freeze. A two-legged shadow, no taller than your waist, steps between ferns, tail held straight for balance. 3 sharp arrows appear in damp soil. The little hunter cocks its head, listens and sniffs. The mammal goes still as bark. A cricket chirps once and stops. The lizard bird thing snaps at a beetle, misses, and moves on with quick, exact steps. When the shadow fades, the mammal exhales, no louder than a sigh through grass, then slips along the route to safety. Night thickens. The small ones take the hours the giants leave free. In a rotten log, white threads of fungus knit wood to crumbs. Beetles with shiny backs tunnel through. Wood roaches flutter like falling leaves. A centipede moves in waves, 2 steps per segment, orange as old sap. The air has a warm mushroom taste. A toad the size of your fist sits in a puddle and blinks, throat pulsing like a slow drum. Moths, soft and dusty, bump cones and rest with wings held like tents. By the stream, another mammal slips from a hole, longer and flatter than the first, with a tail thick at the base and toes webbed like tiny paddles. Its fur beads water and sheds it. It slides into a black pool and draws a silver line as it swims. It hunts with touch, whiskers buzzing against ripples. A small crayfish backs up, raises claws, and then vanishes in a swirl and a crunch. The swimmer climbs a root, shakes, eats, washes its face, and dives again. In the trees, leaves shiver where no wind moves. A shape the length of your forearm spreads skin between wrist and ankle and sails like a thrown scarf from one trunk to the next. It lands with a soft thoop, claws bite bark, and the skin folds away. Big eyes drink starlight. The glider noses along a seam in the bark, pulls a fat moth from a crack, chews with tiny clicks and licks its lips. Under it, little prints point from stump to stump, pads soft, claws neat, each step barely pressing the crust. The air is busy with tiny sounds. Crickets saw, katydids tick. A beetle drills wood with a dry burr. A hunting spider plucks its web like a string, then climbs the silk road to meet the shake. Dew beads every strand, and makes the trap a pale wheel that fades as you move your head. A small snake, no thicker than your finger, flows between roots. It finds a nest under a slab of bark, 2 eggs soft as wet paper, swallows both, and glides away. The night keeps the secret. You crouch at a tunnel no wider than 3 fingers. Warm, nutty air moves out. Inside, the first mammal curls with 2 young pressed to her belly. Their ears are folded like tiny shells. They breathe fast, hearts tapping 100 times a minute. The mother lifts her head, blinks and settles again. The roof shines where many bodies have brushed it smooth. Dried leaves line the sides like a low wall. A beetle clacks past the door. The mother's whiskers twitch in sleep. A soft thud shakes soil from a root. A larger hunter moves outside the circle of your sight. A foot as big as your head presses deep, pushes off and is gone, soft as a cat in slippers. The ground holds the print in the story. 3 toes, a raised heel, claw tips sharp. The tunnel stays quiet. The world of giants passes like weather overhead, and the small keeps still and wait it out. Fog pulls through the trees like a pale river, and beads on every needle. Toward dawn, chores begin. A dung beetle rolls a neat ball along a groove in the soil, stops at a root, and pushes, legs churning like little oars. It finds the angle and goes over, then down into a hole it dug at dusk. A millipede chews a line across a leaf like a careful zipper. Fungal threads stitch fallen needles into a soft mat. First light is gray and blue. The swimmer stones its doorway. The mother tugs dry fern into a tighter ring. The glider tucks into bark like a letter between pages. Birds begin, thin but bright, and their calls write lines across the slow hum. Sun edges the crowns. Doors close. The stream turns green. A last cricket chirps. Night work ends. The small world folds away. Sun climbs. Heat seeps into the floor and pulls a pine smell from the bark. Day winds lift dust in ribbons. Big shadows pass over every small door. Under root and stone, tiny chests rest. In burrow and nest, the soft lives store their strength. They will wake again at the first silver star, ready to run, to glide, to swim, and to clean the forest's plate. You walk with the land as it changes, and the ground keeps its low music. Far below, hot rock moves like slow honey. Along the rifts, the crust stretches a few centimeters each year, as fast as nails grow, and thin places glow. A seam splits with a crack you feel in your teeth. Lava pours out and runs like a dark river, then cools to ripples and ropes. When night comes, the flow keeps a red heart under a black skin and writes bright lines through the valley. Ash falls like gray snow and melts on warm stone, and the air smells of salt, resin, and faint egg from gas that leaks up. New rock stacks in sheets as thick as a person, and the valley floor lifts by the height of your knee in a single season. The valley smells sharp after rain and warm like stone in sun each day. Not all fire comes from rifts. Where one plate dives under another, a chain of cones marks the bite. Far to the west, mountain edges thump. Pebbles dance, then settle. A thin dust drifts through bars of light and turns the air to old gold. Hours later, the ash cloud arrives like a moving shade. It softens the ridge and mutes the sun. Needles bow, then spring when rain lumps the ash and drops it in clumps. A creek runs gray and thick. Fish gasp at the surface where the water tastes like wet clay. Then the flow clears and shines again. Storms carry more than ash. They tear slabs from cliffs and toss them like toys. A single night of hard rain can move a beach the length of a field. Waves march in 5 and 6 meter sets and beat steady on new coasts. The sound is a drum in ribs and teeth. On quiet days, the same waves lay sand in even lines and leave lacy foam on flat rock. Tide pools hold tiny clear worlds. Snails write slim trails. A small ammonite shell rolls and rings like a cup on stone. On the young shelves, other builders work without hurry. Corals lay cups of stone no wider than beans. Worms sew sand into tubes, and algae paint hard skins on pebbles. Grain by grain, the reef lifts its wall into warm, clear water, where light still reaches 10-20 meters down. Fish flicker like sparks. When storms tear a block free and slam it on the flat, the reef grows back from the break the way skin closes a cut. Between the reefs and the rifts, low seas spread broad muds. In quiet hollows, the water holds too little breath for busy life. Fine black flakes fall night after night and settle in thin, even sheets. Worms leave small loops. These soft beds trap every leaf, cone, scale, and shell that reaches them. The weight above squeezes water out and locks the layers tight. Mud becomes shale, ripple marks freeze, raindrops keep their tiny cups, and the print of a passing foot hardens for keeps. Rivers read the new map and change their minds. Some split into braids across wide fans, flashing in sun, then vanishing under banks of sand. Others carve tight blue pools in fresh lava and drop small waterfalls from ledge to ledge. Where floods spread, they lay beds of sand as thick as a tall person. Then the next flood peels the top away and writes a new line. In one bend you find udis, tiny balls of lime grown as waves rolled grains over and over. They feel like sugar under your fingers. Forest work turns to rock as well. Conifers bleed amber along old scars. Drops catch flies and mites and bits of feather, then harden in sun. A branch falls and is buried in damp sand. Minerals creep into each cell and trade wood for quartz without losing shape. What was tree becomes stone you can polish, and rings show 10, 20, 30 years counted by rain and light. In low swamps, mats of needles and fern pack into sour beds. The load above squeezes them to dark, shiny seams that burn hot and smell like tar. Mountains rise slow along the rim of a warm sea. Each quake lifts a terrace the thickness of your arm. Each wet season steals that gift and sends it down as sand and silt. In a fresh cut you can read the days like lines on a ruler. A thin ash sheet, a thick sand bar, a storm layer of pebbles as big as eggs, then calm clay with leaf shadows pressed like smoke, quartz veins stitch cracks in white. You feel the planet breathe in simple counts. Push, pause, pull, pause, years of quiet making, hours of break and fall. The quiet writes most of the book, but the breaks turn the page. One dawn the reef flat lies wide and bright. By noon the sky is iron, the wind is a fist, and waves hit the outer wall and leap white. Coral blocks roll like dice. When the storm passes, the shelf is scraped fresh in places and stacked higher in others. Out on a basalt plain, a crack opens with a dry scream and becomes a glowing line. Stand 100 meters away, and you still feel hot wind. Ferns wilt at its touch, brown from edges inward. Birds lift and slide toward the far ridge. The flow fattens, slows and spreads to a field, then a lake. It cools from red to orange, to dull black. Along the front gas blisters pop with soft puffs. A fallen trunk flares and is gone. Night returns with a soft quake, then stillness. From a high place you see red beads winking along the rift like campfires strung for miles. Past them the sea lies black and patient, its own maker and its own hammer. Somewhere a plate grinds, somewhere a reef grows, somewhere a tree bleeds sweet and makes a jewel around a gnat's wing. The work never stops, and the stone keeps the story for the hands that will find it. You stand on a headland at the close of the Jurassic, and the light feels old and kind. The sea below is calm after a day of storms, and the reef hums like slow breath. Warm air smells of salt and resin, with a thin ribbon of ash from far vents that still glow at night. Behind you the forest keeps its shadows like water in a bowl. Conifers lean over fern beds, ginkgos fold their fan leaves, and tree ferns hold soft roofs where moths drift like pale sparks. The rocks under your palms are still warm from the sun. On the plain, the big lives keep their steady work. Long necks sweep the high green. Platebacks graze the low green, and steam in the mist after rain. Meat-eaters move like shadows at the edge and test for weak steps, never spending more speed than needed. Feet press prints the size of bowls into damp mud, and when floods spread a thin skin across them, the sun bakes that skin hard. In nests half buried in warm sand, round eggs rest under moonlight. A shell cracks, a soft snout peeps, and a new voice joins the morning rustle. Over the water, pterosaurs ride the last lift of the day, wings stretched like dark kites against copper light. A small bird the size of a crow flaps to a ginkgo limb, claws scraping bark with a dry rasp. It folds feather blades made for air and tucks its head under a wing that smells of dust and oil. The sky is shared for now, exact and fair. Each glide is spent with care, each turn a tiny cost. Farther out, a plesiosaur's neck draws a thin curve on the smooth sea and sinks without a sound into blue. The map keeps changing. The young Atlantic creeps wider between the lands at a few centimeters each year, like a ribbon pulled from a knot. Shallow seas spread onto low coasts and build wide shelves bright with coral heads and fish like chips of glass. Elsewhere, inland basins hold dark, still water that smells of eggs and mud, where night drops black flakes that will press into shale. Rifts throw red lines across valleys and lay fields of basalt that shine like wet skin in morning light. Mountains lift by the width of a finger with each small quake, yet change weights in the wings with quiet feet. New lines of hunters rise in the north with narrow skulls and clever eyes. Armor on some plant-eaters thickens from plates to heavy shields that carry spikes like stars. In the water, broader jaws take the heavy role, and some fish learn to crush shells hard as stone. In the trees, feathers spread from arm to arm, and wings work better in rough air. The small stay busy, the large keep slow time, but the cast shifts one player at a time while the song stays the same. A night comes so clear the Milky Way looks like spilled salt. You lie on warm basalt and feel it hold the day's heat like bread holds steam. The reef ticks and pops, a small fire underwater. Far inland, a red rim glows where a fissure opened. By morning it will be black glass full of beads no wider than seeds. In the cliff below, a thin white line of ash lies between two dark beds of mud. In that line, tiny shards still glitter if you turn the rock just so. The stone keeps the book and will not forget. Dawn lifts and paints the headland gold. Footprints made yesterday hold silver puddles. A dragonfly warms its wings on a ginkgo fan and lifts like a paper toy. A pterosaur steps to the edge, leans, and lets the new wind take its weight. On the plain, a long neck reaches for a top spray, a fresh bite level made by one more season of growth. A young bird tries a longer glide and makes it, claws scraping the next branch with a hopeful squeak. The feel is like a door opening a little wider than before. By now the count of years stands near 145 million since this age began, and the end of the chapter is close. The world will not snap shut, it will turn a page. Seas will push farther in and lay chalk bright as clouds. New coasts will draw fresh curves. Forests will change their rules. Flowers will open flags, and bees will write bright paths, and fruits will hang sweet where today only cones and fans grow. Grass will take longer, but one day it will sow plains to the far blue edge. You take one last slow look at this kind, wet world. Its smell is salt and sap and a hint of smoke. Its sound is drip and buzz and far surf and the low talk of wind and needles. Its feel is damp skin, warm rock, soft mud stripes on your ankles, and steady ground that sometimes shivers to remind you that deep below the honey still moves. You press your palm to a flat slab and feel nothing at first, then the faintest tremble, more idea than touch. The earth is already turning the page while ink is wet. Before the sun is high, clouds build again, white towers with gray feet. A breeze flips ginkgo fans so they flash like hands waving goodbye. Out past the reef, a plesiosaur lifts for air, a last small bow in morning light. The herd on the plain makes its steady line toward shade. The bird tries another brave glide and wins more sky. You breathe deep and taste the future in the damp, a sweetness not yet here but close. The Jurassic keeps its promise one more day, and then it gives the stage to new days. New light gathers on far shores where flowers will test the air soon.